Hello, Shilpa, you're on mute.
Yeah. Sorry. Namaste. Good morning. Good evening to those of you attending the session from outside of India. A very warm welcome to the Vedic Astrology Masterclass Series 2023. I am Miss Shilpa Kona and I will be your host today. It is with great pleasure that we introduce Dr. Andrew Foss, a distinguished scientist who has dedicated his career to the fascinating world of Vedic astrology. Today, Dr. Foss will be taking a session on a very intriguing subject consciousness, karma, and life purpose. Dr. Foss holds a doctorate and a master's as well as Master of Arts degree from the prestigious University of Oxford. As the president and co-founder of British Association of Vedic Astrology, Dr. Foss has played a pivotal role in promoting and advancing the practice of Vedic astrology. His dedication to Jyotish extends to his role as a Jaimini scholar, where he has explored and shared profound insights into this ancient astrological tradition. Dr. Foss is also renowned as the author of Sri Jyoti Star, a significant software tool in the field of Vedic astrology, and has also created an ebook series called Yoga of the Planets. Now, beyond his written contributions, Dr. Foss is an exceptional teacher and a consultant. His dedication to the field is further exemplified by his cutting edge software solutions to support the work of astrologers and enthusiasts alike. For any inquiries or collaborations, you can always reach out to Dr. Andrew Foss at andrew@vedicsoftware.com. A very warm welcome, sir, to our show. And before I hand it over to you, any questions if our audience has, they can post it as comments in the comment section, and we you can take them in the end of the session. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much for that very generous introduction. Thank you. So we'll just honor the Guru. Om Guruve Namah. Om Guruve Namah. Om Guruve Namah. Om Gam Ganapataye Namah. Aing Saraswatyay Namah. So I thought we'd discuss a few topical aspects today, including some Jyotish. But first we have some foundational things, and I thought I'd discuss also a little bit about AI, what we're learning from that. So these things are very important for us to understand when we're studying Jyotish. So a small plug here. This is my book, Yoga of the Planets. It's also available in India as Mantras of the Navagraha on Amazon and Flipkart and Poti.com. So this is I collected the 108 mantras of all the Navagraha, and I did a translation and commentary. So, and there's some Jyotish as well. But primarily this book is a way of understanding the energies represented by the planets throughout the whole zodiac. As you know, we traditionally divide the zodiac into 108 parts, and there's deep astronomical reasons for this. And this gives rise to the fact that usually when we're doing japa, we do 108 mantras. All the deities, they have sets of 108 mantras, and so the Navagraha also. And for each position in the sky, there's a mantra for each planet. So this is it's a very powerful technique. It's been used by the astrologers, especially in South India, for hundreds, maybe thousands of years. And the book makes it more accessible, I think, to the ordinary public, or even the many of my colleagues use it even for their readings. It's amazing how insightful the mantras are. And if you go to yogaoftheplanets.com, you'll see some sample content. And I've also recorded all the mantras to help those who need some help. This is the software that's just been released, Sri Jyoti Star 10. Sri Jyoti Star 9 became very popular everywhere. And now Sri Jyoti Star 10 is available on the Microsoft Store. So anyone who has access to Windows 10 or 11 can access it immediately. And it's very affordable. And hopefully soon we'll have for the Apple devices as well. It's a major, major upgrade from the previous version. So, conscious intelligence and AI, we need to understand these things a little bit, I think, in order to progress in life. So let us see what we can look at it a little bit. So what I think is interesting, I mean, artificial intelligence is taking over in a big way. It's just rapidly expanding in all directions. And so we hear a lot about it. But I think one of the most interesting things is what we've learned from AI about how our own cortex works. What is the difference really between a human being and other animals, other life forms? It's all life. Life is in common everywhere, but something happened as the brain of the humans developed that caused them to get the edge above the other primates and animals. And it seems to be something to do with a number of interconnections. Now, when I was doing my PhD, we did a lot on artificial intelligence. In those days, the networks were quite small. So there was nothing really intelligent about them. They just worked really well for specific problems. But in the last few years, they discovered that if you make these, what they call neural nets, they're sort of, it was our attempt to imitate the brain. Maybe it's not a perfect imitation, but in some respects, it is remarkably similar. And the trick turns out to be in the number of interconnections. As the number of interconnections crosses a certain series of thresholds, then the whole system starts behaving in a totally new way. It's like something switches on. And there's a theory called theory of mind, which has been developed, over the past by the psychologists. And this has been applied to children, as they grow up. They pass certain thresholds and they become able to understand certain concepts, which, we adults take for granted, but for a very young child, it's not at all obvious. Now they tried the theory of mind tests on these large language models, and they discovered that as the number of interconnections cross certain thresholds, and maybe some other tweaks, then the relative age of the AI increased. So the most recent, this is GPT-4, the famous GPT-4, achieves a theory of mind level of between 7 and 9 years old child. But actually, by the time a child is 9, they're getting almost 100% on these tests. And this is what GPT-4 managed. It wasn't quite 100%, but it got pretty close. So we can say that it appears to be functioning like it has a mind. So what is it learning? It's what it's learned. It's studied, in some respects, all the things that humans have written and spoken, and that's been recorded in the past. And so if you say something to it, it kind of knows how to reply, because it has the whole history of how humans have responded in similar circumstances. So it's like you see something, you say, okay, I know how to do this. I know what to answer to this question. And this is how we all are, isn't it? It's just like somebody starts speaking and then something comes in your head how to reply. So in this respect, we see that, we've been trained just like the AI has been trained. So there's some very interesting things. The psychologists have found that when we remember something, it's like the memory comes out of the memory stored not as an exact copy of what happened, but as a certain pattern in the brain or some parts of the brain. It's quite distributed. It's not like very localized. And then when we remember it, this pattern, projects itself as our memory, and then it mixes with the experience of the present moment. Suppose we have this memory when we're feeling, suppose the memory of something traumatic, and then we remember it when we're in a very sort of safe and protected environment, then that feeling of being safe and protected gets mixed with the memory, and it gets restored in the brain. So every time you remember something, it changes a little bit. We think, oh yeah, I remember that. No, we don't really remember it. We have some kind of very filtered memory, and every time we go back to that memory, it changes a little bit. So this is how, human memory is very profound, but it's not reliable in the same way that perhaps like a photograph might be. Though in a way, every time photograph gets exposed to the light of the day, at least the traditional photographs, they might have deteriorated a little bit. Things change over time. We have to remember that. But the point is here that you can have healing because, if you've suffered from some bad experiences, there is a way of healing that the psychologists are developing a lot these days, which is based on this fact that what I just explained. So it's an important therapeutic approach. So the same thing is with the AI. The AI, you can set it up so it doesn't learn anything, or you can set it up so that every time it interacts with us or the environment, it's learning, right? So these are two different situations. And we see this in human beings also, because, some people, they go through whatever education they have, and then it stops. The learning kind of stops. They don't want to learn anymore, It's like people take some course, maybe Jyotish course, and they reach some sort of level, and then they stop showing up for courses and, wonderful conferences like this one, where they would learn new things, but for some reason they don't show up. I've always wondered why this is. People think they've learned it all. So this is the AI that's sort of learned something, but it's sort of stuck because it's not learning anything new. But, if the brain's exposed to new experiences, it will keep learning. And the latest and most advanced AIs also keep learning. There's been an announcement in the last days that the GPT-4 is now set up so it'll go on learning. Now the question is, what is it learning? What is it? Is it being trained to be good, whatever that means, or bad, whatever that means? This is very important, isn't it? So we have in computer science, I studied, I did my PhD in computer science. My undergraduate degree was in physics. Anyway, in the lab where I was studying, there was a slogan on the wall. It said, "Garbage in, garbage out." It's not a very inspiring slogan. But the point is, as computer scientists, you were supposed to remember this, that you must train your neural nets with things that are useful, good data. You don't feed it rubbish data, because otherwise then, that's what you'll get out on the other side. So this was drummed into our heads, you know. But the fact of the matter is that curating data, in other words, filtering it, is quite a tiresome project. So suppose you just say, okay, I'll train my AI on the whole internet. And we don't know, but we suspect that this is what happened with some of these famous models. Now, what do we know about the internet? You know, there may be the bits that we visit which are very nice, but then we know that, you know, at least 50% or maybe it's 75% of the internet is pornography and other kinds of things which we definitely wouldn't want, you know, our children exposed to. There's some very evil parts of the internet. So whatever the AI is learning, or we, you know, whatever we're exposed to, is what we're trained in. It's the training. This is the point really that I'm trying to make, you see, because now they're telling us that, you know, you give a young child a smartphone, which is almost invariably happens to every young child, and even if it has some kind of filters in it, they find a way around the filter. Naturally, kids are very smart. And by the time they're even 10 years old, they've been exposed to a lot of very, very bad stuff, which leaves them with serious psychological problems in some cases. You know, we read about this, us older people, but who were lucky enough to grow up without smartphones. It's very fortunate. But, you know, there's pluses and minuses to everything. So this is the thing. The critical thing is what you feed into the brain or the AI. And now the AI experts, some of them are saying that we have to filter what is being, what is being given for training. And this is really what education is all about. You know, there's always a big fight about what the children should be taught, what history, you know, and every country filters its history. You know, I grew up in the famous British educational system. And, you know, if you went through that, you got the impression that Britain won every war that it fought, which is not true. But that's because they just didn't bother to mention the times that we lost the battle. So this is the, you know, the filtering that goes on. And we're all facing this. This is a critical thing for all of us because the AI is going, you know, into everything. And we don't know what it's been trained on, really. Then you see, the question is, suppose you know, Tesla and other people other companies are developing humanoid robots, right? So Tesla say if you buy one of their robots, it'll learn from you, right? That sounds good, doesn't it? Except that in America, anyway, we have some pretty crazy people and they're heavily armed. And we don't know what they're going to train. Well, we do know what they're going to train the robot to do, and it's not good. So then who's liable, you know? I mean, that's the least of it, you know, people will die. I mean, this is a very serious question. So, you know, these things have to be taken into account. So what is intelligence, right? Consciousness and intelligence are obviously not the same thing. You know, AI can score very high on IQ tests. So you could say it's very intelligent, maybe more intelligent than we are on average. And intelligence is good. But as the AI experts have said, intelligence is not wisdom. You know, an AI is not wise. And therefore, we have to be very careful how we use them. Now, what about consciousness? Consciousness is obviously something, you know, consciousness and intelligence are sometimes used interchangeably, but consciousness is something that is far beyond intelligence. Intelligence in the intellectual sense. We have to really understand that an AI is not like the human brain. It's like part of the human brain, like part of us has got this intellectual capability. But that's a very small part because, you know, the whole running of our body is done not by that. You know, we are not deciding when to breathe. We're not deciding when the heart beats. We don't decide how the liver works. None of these things. If we were left running our bodies, we'd be dead in a few minutes, wouldn't we? So basically, when you got lucky and you managed to get a human body or a human fetus in the womb and you connected to it, you got certain connections to it, but it's already pre-programmed to manage itself. So you're just sitting on top of it in a way with your, and one of the tools that you get with the human body is it's built in AI, as it were, its own intellect. So the trick is to be aware of the consciousness. In other words, our awareness should be aware of our own consciousness, and there should be some little separation between the consciousness and the mind and the body. The mind includes this in intellect or intelligence. If there's a little separation, life is good. Life is very good. But if there isn't, then we're continuously kind of oppressed by all the mental drama that goes on. Because, if you say something to the chat GPT, it immediately comes with some story, right? And before they started putting filters in to make it nice, it would say some nasty things, some bad stuff, and it could get very obsessed. And we see that human beings are like that, isn't it? Obsession, depression, all these things, they're all a consequence of, whatever we've got stored up here. And then it's easily triggered because all the inputs that are coming in through the senses, from the body, from your own sort of, flow of consciousness, or whatever we like to call it, is constantly triggering more activity. It's like there's constantly people typing and the AI responding, and this is what we have to sit and listen to. And that's why we take to meditation, isn't it? To try and calm the whole thing down. The thing should go quiet when we don't need it, right? So these things we kind of knew, but the AI has made it very obvious. We, at least to have a clear understanding now, even if the actual way the computer works and the brain works is different, because the brain is a quantum mechanical phenomenon and the regular computer is not really that. It has a little bit of quantum mechanics in it, but it's not, it's fundamentally not quantum mechanical. So that's why the brain is so much more powerful than the AI, if you can tap into that power, which is where yoga comes in. This is the importance of yoga. So let's look a little bit at the consciousness and karma. So karma gives us our substance and ability to act. If you don't have any karma, you have no individuality, or just unbounded consciousness. It's beautiful. But so the thing is, consciousness is independent of karma. This is very clear. But the karma gives us our sense of individuality, and it gives us stuff to do. No karma, no body, no action, no nothing. So everything about the whole of our life is all a product of karma. And what we have to work to do is distinguish between consciousness, that's the inherently unbounded bliss level of our existence, and the mind and body which we've collected, which are the products of our karma. And this is where the yoga comes in. The whole purpose of yoga, the great science of yoga, is to help us realize this distinction. And realizing that distinction gives rise to extraordinary capabilities. You really can utilize this amazing machine way beyond, the ordinary average setup of a person. And this is very important because the AI will take over, the robots, and the AI will manage to do pretty much everything we're doing ordinarily these days. So, yoga will become critically important because it's the only way we can be something bigger than and more profound than them. Yeah, we don't know what will happen when they bring a quantum mechanical version of AI, but that was quite a few years away. So what are the types of karmas? This is a well-known thing: Sanchita karma, Prarabdha karma, and Agama karma. And but we need to understand, it's very important to understand the whole way it functions, because this is the basis of our life and it's the basis of Jyotish. So Sanchita is the great heap, the great mountain, which we've somehow gathered over millions of years, probably. I mean, life is very ancient, and we carry within us the memory, which is the karma, of all of life from its beginning. So there's really no bottom to or limit to what we can remember if we're sufficiently capable of accessing this. So this huge mass of karma is the Sanchita karma, and it can generate an endless cycle of lives. And in the Vedic astrology, we get small insight into this through the D60 chart, the Shashti-amsha chart. It's mainly read for what is the immediate past life. But really, it represents sort of recent lives. It's possible that there's some kind of mixture of a few lives represented by that chart. But it's on a very high level. In order to read the D60 chart, you don't need to study some book. Basically, what you've got to do is study your own consciousness, because according to the way the great Jyotishis explain this, then you see the first 12 divisional charts are very much on the physical level. And then the charts beyond the D12, they're on some higher levels. We could say subconscious. They go deeper and deeper into the karmas. And then the D40, the D45, and the D60 are really on an extremely high level. And therefore, they need a very, developed consciousness to access them. That's why it becomes easy if you've done a lot of sadhana. It's not something you can really learn from, just studying. But gradually, makes more sense. So anyway, this is the D60. It's very interesting. And then there's the Prarabdha karma. Prarabdha karma is that package which has been extracted from the Sanchita for the sake of creating a single life. It's a package for a lifetime, 80, 100, 120, 100 and whatever years of life packaged up with all its little experiences. And it starts. So this is Prarabdha. It means something that's commenced, it's undertaken, it's an enterprise, And it's a small package from the Sanchita. But the thing is that even though the Prarabdha is what's functioning, we shouldn't think that the Sanchita has somehow been posted and, left in some place. It's like it's waiting there for when we die for the next life. No, you're still carrying the whole Sanchita. So it's not necessarily driving experiences, but it's creating a kind of weight. There's a sort of heaviness which comes from all of that Sanchita karma, on top of the Prarabdha experiences. So, one of the important parts of yoga is gradually wearing down the Sanchita as well. Because if you don't do something about the Sanchita, it's going to be an endless cycle of lives, isn't it? One birth after another birth. And so it's important to wear down the Sanchita. But this is advanced yoga. You need a good guru for that. So the D1 chart is very much the physical life that's being created by the Prarabdha karma. That's the regular Rashi chart that we study. And behind that, it's well known that behind that is the Navamsha chart, particularly, other charts, but the Navamsha chart in particular is a kind of gatekeeper between the D60 and the D1. So we can say that the Sanchita sort of comes to the D9, the Navamsha chart, and then it starts to manifest through the Rashi chart. So the Navamsha chart has this kind of, it's a very strong representation of the Prarabdha. It's difficult to do remedies for the Navamsha chart. That's what you've got. You got the Prarabdha, and if you read the Shiva Mahapurana, Lord Shiva says that you have to experience it. This is not. That's how you have to enjoy it. Whatever Prarabdha you have, it has to be enjoyed. So that's why the remedies are primarily in the Rashi chart. So what happens when the Prarabdha starts running out? I mean, gradually through life, you're consuming it, isn't it? I mean, each yoga has its day. So the yoga comes up, it manifests, and then it fades away. So it's very important for us because there's this unfortunate tendency to mix up what we're experiencing with our sense of self. You get people and they have a burst of luck, or maybe they did do good, Anyway, they've risen to some high level and they start to think, oh, I'm on this high level because I'm so great, I deserve this and all this. No, it's just has arisen. It was some experience you're destined to have. Maybe you made some good decisions because that's what was destined. And then the yoga starts going down. Of course, or every yoga comes up and it goes down. So when it's going down, you need to be smart enough to know, because what happens is people generally, they think I can keep it going by just, doing some stuff. And it's a disaster. It's like these people who do well on the stock market for a little while. And then they think, I'm so smart, look how good I'm doing. And then when they start losing, they don't bail out. So they lose everything. Even if you tell them, astrologer, I've had this, I've told clients, this is where you have to stop trading now. They don't do it. Then later on they ring back and say, yeah, you were right. And but there you go, you see. So what everybody really needs is a, good yoga practice. And yogis can even download more karma from the Sanchita. See, this is an important thing. They say that you shouldn't read the chart of someone who's got a guru. Now, why do they say that? Because one of the reasons is that the guru may have enhanced the karma of the person, Just when you thought everything was going well, your guru downloaded some more karma for you. And wow, now all kind of drama starts again. New waves of challenges. And you think, oh, the guru's not helping me out. But it is, of course, he's helping you out. It's just he sees the bigger picture than you. So, this is the whole thing. The chart still, it's good. We're going to look at charts of a few things in a minute. So life versus death. Okay, as a human, one has an intellect, so you can make decisions. You can choose to make spiritual progress. You see, when you're not in a human body, there is a gradual process of evolution, but it's slow. So you can't really do anything about it. You can't sit there and do sadhana. It's just there's a sort of drifting around based on one's tendencies. And that can go on for a long time. It's maybe quite pleasant. But, it's some disembodied people do succeed. Something about their tendencies takes them to where some saint is sitting. And if the saint is in the right mood, he feels that this is the moment for that person, he may release them from their karmas. It can happen to the disembodied, but basically there's not much they can do about it. So it's best to take great advantage of the time when you are alive. All the rest of the stuff is going to go. Like when you die, you'll leave it all behind. All the stuff that you're working so hard to accumulate is going to go. So what's the point, really? One has to deal with one's destiny and one's duties to family and all that. Whatever job you have to do your duty. But if you think you don't have time for yoga, maybe you should think again. So now another point, we should just mention is about getting another human body, because life is short and then you're wandering around for a while relaxing, and then time comes, you need to get another body. Well, you'd like at least another human body. Now, Gautama Buddha said this was very difficult, Adi Shankaracharya too. But what I think is the best thing is what Lord Krishna said in the Gita to Arjuna, because Arjuna asked this question, pretty early on. I mean, this is chapter 6. So having had yoga explained to him, he says, well, what happens, if one doesn't get to the goal of yoga, the state of yoga, before one dies? After all, the battle was about to start, death was imminent. And so this is what Lord Krishna said, is probably everyone's familiar with, but I think it's such a beautiful thing. So the unsuccessful yogis, upon death, go to the abodes of the virtuous. After dwelling there for many ages, they are again reborn in the earth plane into a family of pious and prosperous people. Otherwise, if they develop dispassion due to long practice of yoga, they're born into a family endowed with divine wisdom. Such a birth is very difficult to attain in this world. So, this is a great message of hope. Like he says also in the Gita, that any practice of yoga is it's a dharma which is not lost when you die. Basically you carry it with you when you die, and it obviously leads to a very fortunate future birth. So this is another excellent reason for this. Sounds a bit like a plug for yoga, but it's very important. So let's talk about the Gunas a little bit. And we all should know about the Gunas. So we have Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. Everyone should know that. Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. So Sattva is all about satisfaction, basically. I mean, that is the symptom of Sattva. If the Sattva is high, you naturally feel satisfied. There's a purity, there's a goodness, and all of these things come together. And of course, in Vedic astrology, we have 3 planets which are assigned to the Sattva Guna. That's Surya, Chandra, and Brahaspati, Guru. So these 3 are capable of providing you with, Sattva, in other words, satisfaction. And the point is, don't expect satisfaction from any of the other guys. They can't give it to you. Whatever the promises they make, they'll never deliver. There's only 3 paths to Sattva. That's the path of the sun, which is selfless service, the path of the moon, which is caring, like the mother, and the path of Jupiter, which is the path of knowledge. There is no other path that leads to satisfaction. Now, Mercury and Venus, Buddha and Shukra, are the Rajas planets. And Rajas is fine. There's nothing wrong with Rajas. It's just a kind of headless going round and round in circles. But it's perfectly fine. It's just the way the world runs. And we're not satisfied, obviously, because Rajas is predominating. So we're constantly on the move, trying to, we need more money, that's Mercury, right? Or we need to understand more things, that's Mercury. Or we want more relationship experiences, that's Venus. And all of them say, if you get me, then you'll get happiness, but it never happens. In fact, what we observe is that, obviously some resources are very necessary, but once you get past the point where you've got enough, gradually things, psychologically get worse as suppose you earn more and more money. You don't feel happier, you feel actually more oppressed by it. This is something that's kind of very obvious. You move in the circles of prosperous people. And yet the whole society is sort of pushing us. You've got to earn as much money as possible. You've got to build up, your nest egg for the future. And fear of this and fear of that. And why is it like this? Why is the whole culture that we have, this is the Western culture. This is not the traditional Eastern culture. This is the Western culture, which is sort of spread like a cancer over the whole planet, I have to say. Because, the culture is one of dissatisfaction, because dissatisfied people are good customers. Why would the satisfied person, they have hardly anything that they need, you see, because they're satisfied. Food, yeah. Water, yeah. I mean, the key to the economy is dissatisfaction. So that's why that's the whole overriding philosophy of our civilization that we're living with. So it's perfectly fine, but we should just have a very clear understanding that is what is going on. And we don't buy into it. We go along with it, but we don't buy into it psychologically. Then there's tamas. Tamas is dullness, inertia, decay, like old, stale or decayed food. It's a good example. Lord Krishna expounds upon it in the Gita on the subject of food. Sattvic food, rajasic food, tamasic food. And the fact is, you can tell somebody's state of consciousness or the guna that is in them from the sort of food they choose to eat. And it's not a good sign, really. It's a sort of rise of fast food and all. It's not like fast food was invented by this generation or anything. The Romans had fast food. But the point is the food, how fresh is it? We need fresh food if we're going to be healthy. Otherwise, the tamas will just gradually turn us and make us sick. And this is what's happening on a large scale. So it's much better to cook some fresh veggies at home than order out, basically, because maybe you're ordering from some really good restaurant that has absolutely fresh food, but maybe not. Do you know? This is the question. So how do we overcome? Well, sattva is the means to overcome rajas. This is a very important understanding. So in other words, if we feel that the rajas is too strong, that means the sort of headless tendency of rush, pressure, all this, how do we get, and the mind just going round and round endlessly, too many thoughts, all that. So the way to overcome that is to increase the sattva level. That means improve the quality of the diet, pure water, pure food, pure air. These things are all actually quite difficult to access these days, but they all help with the cultivating sattva. Going to holy places, the tirthas, being in the company of purified people. This is the means on top of the practice of yoga. But the practice of yoga is a lot easier when we're in the company of other people practicing yoga. You probably noticed that. Otherwise, you see, we'll discuss that in a second. So the other thing is water, right? Now, there's some kind of sattva that exists, especially on the banks of rivers and the ocean. As long as the water is relatively clean, this is the problem these days. A lot of water isn't very clean, and so you go close to the water, it smells bad and all that. But if there's clean water and you're close to it, you feel the sattva. And that's why the cost of real estate near the ocean is so much higher. It's not just the pretty view. There's some energy that people feel that lifts them up. Now, rajas is the way out of tamas. Suppose you kind of feel a bit stuck, you can't get anything to happen, you spend too much time sitting at home watching the TV or whatever. You got to get up and do something, because the rajas or activity overcomes the tamas. So this is very important. If you see your life is sliding towards things like alcohol and all these chemicals people put inside of themselves to try and do something to their brain, that's gradually deteriorating the health and well-being is a tamas. So the more activity is helpful. That's why, yoga asanas are particularly valuable. Even if we can't meditate, we say, I can't meditate, there's too many thoughts. Just do your asanas, and then you'll find after a while your meditation is very good. All right. The thing we have to remember about tamas, because you see, we're surrounded by it. Rajas and tamas is very dominant, especially in the cities, but wherever people are, to some extent these days, and this tends to push us towards conforming, basically, with the social norm. So it's very difficult not to, get involved with especially the tamas. If you go to a party and everybody's drinking, you're under pressure, right? And it drags down the sattva and even the rajas. So everything starts deteriorating. So from a point of view of Jyotish, sattva is blocked or destroyed by Rahu. So we should understand these things very well. And Rahu represents all forms of addiction, greed, carelessness, shortcutting, cheating, all these things. And we could summarize, we could say these other factors, fear, guilt, and greed, these are the mental conditions which are the enemies of satisfaction and joy. So we can make a sort of analysis, because we'd like to eliminate fear, guilt, and greed from our life. Fear is the classic indication of Rahu. Guilt is a complete illusion, because it's always based on, I did something wrong in the past. So in India, the tradition is that if you feel guilt, you do some penance, whatever that is. Maybe it's a bit of fasting, maybe it's some intensified pranayama, something. Yeah, in other words, you're undertaking some kind of small suffering, voluntary suffering, and you keep doing it until the guilt just fades away. It will fade away after a while because you paid the debt. It's like you just paid the debt and it's gone. So you can't just think, I'm not going to feel guilty. There's no sanity to feeling guilty. It doesn't make any sense and it doesn't help anybody. But if the feeling is there, something has to be done. You can't just think away guilt. So this is what the rishis recommended. Now Rajas is blocked by Ketu. So Ketu says, be still, right? So that's very good. If Ketu is under the influence of Jupiter, Brahaspati, then Ketu is the one advising meditation and all that. And then when you're meditating, you're very quiet, ultimately completely still. But other aspects of Ketu, if it's influenced by other planets, maybe its advice is not so helpful, because there are other ways of being still, like sleeping, dying. We should always try to strengthen the Jupiter element. So that's the key for a successful Rajas. If we're going to be successful in life, we need the support of Jupiter. So tamas is not all bad. Sleep is tamas, and we'd like to perhaps sleep less, but you need it. And, anesthesia is very helpful when at the right time. But if we're dull and we should be awake, then we're wasting the little time that we have. Time is short. So we want to, minimize on the tamas. So they say, this is what the rishis say, get into the company of the wise. So each one of us and every part of nature generates its own influence, you see. Humans are very influential. Like whatever's going on in your head, you think it's going on in my head, right? And you think what's going on in my head is just me? No. Because the way the brain is designed is highly quantum mechanical. I don't have time to explain this today, but the brain is highly quantum mechanical, and because of its quantum mechanical setup, it's extremely powerful transmitter and receiver. What is transmitted and received are very subtle. That's why the modern science hasn't really got to the point of being able to detect it properly. But there is a continuous transmission and reception. So you pick up other people's feelings and thoughts, they pick up yours. It's a continuous process. This is why it is, getting into the company of the wise is so beneficial, and getting into the company of the lazy and the careless is a very bad idea, because however good we are, we think, I'm fine, I'm a good person. But as the ancient texts in India say, even a good person gets completely ruined by bad company. Eventually, just one little bit, and you gradually go down and down, you see. So if we live in a community where there's a lot of rajas and tamas, then there's this pressure, as I was saying. And then sadhana is difficult, It's worth doing it, and we can do it, but it's more difficult because of the whole environmental pressure. So what can we do? Well, if we can't go somewhere where there's a bigger community of people doing sadhana, that would be good. Then at least occasionally we should go places where the energy is higher, whether it's some tirtha, like some holy place, or some ashram or something. So it just lifts us up for a few days, and that helps us keep going with our personal sadhana. So yes, the Vedic saying. So this is what I was saying. I mean, there are some very good ashrams still going, maybe many of them. So we should take advantage of that. But we really need more what we could call spiritual infrastructure. I mean, India used to have this fantastic spiritual infrastructure everywhere. And the remnants are still there. I mean, and there's still regeneration going on. But then the rest of the world, there's, you can find something everywhere if you look. So I thought I'd just have a quick look at the journey of the soul, because it's just very important to have this big picture, because, ultimately we've all emerged out of what the shunya, we could say, the eternal darkness. There's nothing negative about it. It's the infinite Shiva. Out of that, these, individuality sense arises. And then once you've got a sense of individuality, you feel the separation from the infinity. So that a process of searching starts. And it has to work through all of the tamas and rajas and then sattva. And finally, there's the eternal bliss. So, as a human being, we're pretty far up the pyramid. But we have a choice, you see. We can go backwards and forwards vertically with rajas. We can sink back towards the darker fields with tamas, or we can gradually move upwards, which is a good idea. It's the longing for God that makes us move upwards. And so anyway, I just thought I'd show you that. So let's have a little bit on purpose in life. So this is a very big topic, because when astrologers tend to get asked this question, what's my purpose in life? It's a very common question. And there are lots of different techniques for answering, because it's a big topic. It's not like anything small. There are different levels to it. Obviously, there's a biological purpose. There's survival. As soon as you get a body, survival becomes an important issue. Then there's reproduction. I mean, let's face it, the human body has two things. There's survival and reproduction, which is the survival of the species, right? And we say this is a debt to the rishis. The rishis are the forefathers. So we should keep the species going. I mean, we've done such a good job of it. We've overpopulated the earth now, but anyway, we still need good children. But so that's a level. We don't have to bother with that much for astrology. Everybody's busy with that. So then we have the karmic purpose. So what we've come here because either some residual desire, like if you want something, if you really want something, then you can either accomplish it in this lifetime or you can't. You may want to be, Prime Minister of India or President of the United States or something, but your odds of achieving that are very small. But if you had a really strong desire and you're working towards it, you're not going to get it in this lifetime, suppose. So then you have to be reborn to have another shot. And another shot and another shot. It might go on for a long time before you actually achieve something that looks like that. So these residual desires can generate multiple lifetimes. Then there's the consequence of past actions. In other words, the debts that we've accumulated. You took something and now you have to pay it back somehow. Or you did something, you gave something, and now you have to receive it back. In other words, you have to enjoy some benefit. Like people who become very wealthy have generally done some great act of charity in a previous life. You may not behave like they're charitable, but in some previous life, they were definitely charitable. And that good luck has manifested as some, wealth or something. And then there's the soul level purpose, which is what we just looked at, which is that, movement towards God, we can say, or movement towards the eternal bliss. So these are the principal purposes of life. Now, this we've already discussed. There is this search that's going on for that infinity. That's why human beings always want more. Whatever you've got, you want more, you want more. It's not because you need more money or something. It's because there's something inside of you that wants infinity. And so it's always looking for more. It just doesn't know where it's looking. So, the adverts say you need this bigger car. Okay, now I need a bigger car. You get the bigger car, it's boring. Now you need a bigger car. It's always like that, more and more. And this is what's killing the planet. Because the more and more thing is being focused in the wrong area. It's being focused very nicely by the commercial sector, but it's not capable. The planet cannot sustain us if we all behave like that. So that's, we're running out of time. I wanted to show you something which is, we'll leave this. In Jyotish, there are certain yogas. The yoga is indicating something that you have to do. So this is one way of looking at it. There's so many techniques in Jyotish, but I wanted to show you one particular yoga which sort of illustrates this. So this is my guru Sanjay Rat, and he has a particular yoga for teaching Veda or Vedanga in a foreign language, or say to foreign people, foreign country. And he often mentions this, so that's why I'm showing his chart in particular, but it's to do with the combination of the 6th Lord and the 8th Lord in the 5th house. You see, it's got the 6th Lord and the 8th house, 8th Lord in the 5th house. This is giving rise to this. And so I was just thinking, I was preparing this lecture, well, as I know other people who are doing this, so let's have a look at some other charts. So the first person I thought of is Sadhguru, because Sadhguru is, extremely famous for what? Basically, he tends to speak in English. He's from Karnataka, which is where this conference is being organized from. He speaks, of course, Kannada and Telugu and Tamil and all, but he tends to speak in English. I thought this yoga must be there in his chart. So I put the thing out. Well, look at that. You see, we've got the Lord of the 6th and the 8th and the 5th. So, everybody, he has different destiny than Sanjay Rat, but this particular yoga is there, which shows some particular thing that the person is going to do in their life. Which could be quite important. So I thought, well, there must be some other people. We know Srila Prabhupada is a classic example of somebody who taught Vedic knowledge in in America and other countries. So he was definitely talking in English to his people. So what has he got? Well, the Lord of the 8th is the moon, and the Lord of the 5th is Mars, and they're together in the 6th house. So this illustrates how the yoga, it's the same yoga. It's not exactly the way Sanjay described it, but it's still there, and it's still manifesting. Obviously, it's manifesting in the person's life, and a major factor in this incredible work that he did. There are so many other yogas in these charts, but just I thought I'd illustrate one. And here's Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. He's another person. And so what does he have? You see, I just wanted to show you this, how this, a particular yoga can manifest in various ways. And in fact, I have some other charts of, how it manifests through the Navamsha, but we don't really have time for that. So this is the last thing I'm showing you. So what do we have? Venus is the Lord of the 5th. The Sun is the Lord of the 8th. And they're together in the 12th, aspecting the 6th house. So again, you see, it's a variation on the yoga. So I think that's the last thing I'll show you. And let's talk about solar flares. Anyway, the next 2 years, there's going to be peak solar flares. And this is going to greatly intensify people's spiritual potential, but also will intensify things like violence. And so we really need to focus more on the spiritual side to keep some control over the, warlike tendencies. So I won't discuss that. Thank you very much. So I'll catch it almost to an hour. I thought I was going to have a bit more time, but let's see. Any questions? Oh, lots of things. So, oh yeah, so this I'm just looking at the last question. So the question is, you see, there's a yoga for being born a Brahmin. Brahmin means some knower of the reality, really. It's not just being born in the family of a particular caste. So, the moon in the 12th house and Saturn aspecting the Lagna, for example. I mean, the point about, you see, the moon is the source of all our experiences. And why would you take an interest in knowledge if the moon is just going to give you some, easy life, make money, all those things? There has to be some influence, especially of Shani, because that gives you a certain sort of sense that enough, I've done this a million times before, and now I should make some real progress. This is not just Jupiter. Shani is essential. Even astronomically, we can see that the solar system, the most important factor in the solar system, apart from the sun, is the relationship between Guru and Shani, Jupiter and Saturn. They're kind of joined somehow astronomically, and they sort of vibrate together. And this is the key factor. That's why the astrologers have always used the Guru-Shani conjunctions. For thousands of years, they've been using Guru-Shani conjunctions as a way of sort of predicting the mundane experiences of humanity. So there has to be, and of course the Dushtanas have this Karaka Shani. So this influence on the moon tends to make you more spiritual. That's the thing. And every good Brahmin should be spiritual. I mean, there's no Brahmin. It's like there's a saying in the Vedic literature that if a Brahmin misses his Sandhya Vandana even once, he's no longer a Brahmin, right? So, okay, so what else? Other questions? There's a lot of questions. Oh, you can't. No, you can't. You can't move the prabda back to the sanchita when the prabda is finished. The thing is, what happens is sometimes people die prematurely. It's what we call apamrityu. So you were supposed to live for X number of years, and you was X minus when you died because of some bad thing happened. So you still have that, some prabda technically available. So it just has to work itself out for the disembodied soul. It's not a great situation. It just takes a lot of time floating around in the ethers, to wear off the remaining prabda. This is one of the, there are various calculations in Jyotish for how long you'll be left, apamrityu, and then what's remaining before you really get some kind of sense of ease and release, we could say. You wouldn't want to move prabda into the sanchita. Yes, ADHD. Rahu in the 10th house is a very wonderful thing. They say it gives a dip in the Ganga. But why would you go for the dip in the Ganga? You see, the 10th house is karma. We say it's karma bhava. So if Rahu is there, then there's a sense, there can be a sense that you need to purify yourself. So that can lead to you just start going to the tirthas, you go and bathe in the holy rivers, you go to the great temples, you touch the feet of the yogis. I mean, it's good, but you're doing it because you're motivated by that sense of needing to clean yourself, which, we all do, but it's just becomes sort of more self-evident when Rahu is associated with the 10th house. Thank you. You can't say that the Matrikaraka has to be in the 5th house of the D24. It might not be. You see, there are various correction methods for charts, but none of them are, going to apply to everybody, because, you're born with some destiny, and the destiny could be anything. You see, if there's sort of rules for when it applies and when it doesn't apply. It's all how much prabda is left. It's quite easy, because when the prabda is running out, you start feeling very relaxed and very at ease. There's a sense of great freedom that comes as the prabda is running out. That's why, the last days of people's lives can be very beautiful, because, you just feel great because the weight is gone, you see. So of course, once the prabda runs out, the body starts collapsing, but you don't really care, because there's this sense of something very beautiful happening. So, if it feels very heavy and all, then there's probably plenty of karma left of the prabda. I mean, it's useful because lots of things can be done. If you don't have the prabda, you can't do anything. That's why the body gives up and goes away. So karma is good. I mean, it's been said. Actually, Sadhguru said that a guru needs to have very rich karma, because they have to deal with so many people and on a big scale and so many things. That's why, not all gurus do, because maybe they only have 1 or 2 disciples. Some of them have, vast numbers. It depends on their karma. Thank you for all the kind points. Any questions else? If you manage to live a complete life, you don't die prematurely, then you get to this point, it's a very beautiful point where there's sort of, there is a real sense of freedom because of the Prarabdha having essentially exhausted itself. And then you might get liberation at that point when you die without doing anything. If you're not full of fear and all that sort of thing, you just relax into that beautiful ease, it can take you all the way, apparently. So it's a very precious situation. We shouldn't be afraid of it at all. This is something to be cherished. Shilpa, how are we doing?
Thank you so much, Andrew. It was a wonderful session and it was a delight listening to you and the way you simplified these complex concepts, the complex concepts to understand the life. It was wonderful, and I'm sure our audience also would have enjoyed it, and which we can see from the questions. So thank you so much, Andrew.
Thank you
It
so
was
much.
really a delight having you.
You guys
Before
are
we,
of organizing, and I really appreciate it.
yeah, yeah. Just a note before we end our session, I'd like to inform that the next masterclass session is happening tomorrow, 1st of October, and the session will be, our guest for the session will be Shri PVR Narsimha Rao, and he will be talking about annual charts of a Muhurta chart. And if you want to stay informed about the master classes and similar sessions by the foundation, please visit our website, which is www.rrf.in, or you can join our Telegram channel. Thank you so much, Andrewji. Thank you, our audience. Thank you, our listeners, for being there and for supporting us in all our sessions. Thank you once again. Have a great evening. Have a great night. Thank you.